Hey, welcome to this episode of Profitology with your friend, your guest, your ECFO, Perry Jeffries. Thanks for joining me today. Hey, super excited about this segment. If you haven't joined us for an episode of Profitology before, we are simply here to discuss the numbers that you need to create profit in your future, in your finances, and in your family. So how we do that is we have different topics where we cover, the things that are most important and that we need to focus on, right? So I have an intentionality around what we need to focus on. And today's segment is a continuation of the series we've been doing, the COVID-19 Survival Kit series. This is actually episode 18. And the topic today is, how do you know if you're saving enough? So again, how do you know if you're saving enough? Well, before we get started, y'all, grab some pen and paper because I'm going to give you a couple action steps that you can follow today that's going to help you identify whether or not you're saving enough. But I will tell you this out the gate, it's a pretty good chance that you aren't saving enough. All right, so let me tell you how this starts. I was recently having a meeting with one of our newer clients, and we were helping them plan out how to manage their business and their finances in order to reach their personal goals. So that's your first takeaway there. So if you're an entrepreneur, and even if you're not an entrepreneur, you should understand this. Your career or your job or your business is simply there as a vehicle to transport you to your personal goals. Let me say that again. Your job, your business, your career is a vehicle to transport you to your personal goals. And as we found out here recently, during this crisis, your vehicle may need to change. Your personal goals shouldn't have changed, but you may need to change your vehicle to be able to adapt in this particular environment. Make sense? So we shouldn't fall in love with what our career, our job, and our business is. What we should be falling in love is identifying the right vehicle to reach us, to get transport us to our personal goals. So that's your first takeaway. So when I was working with these clients, we went through this exercise of getting to know your numbers. So definitely grab pen and paper. So this is how we started. The first question I had for our client was this, and it was a husband and wife, and I was super excited to have this conversation with them because they're both entrepreneurs, but they're coming together to create a system, a finance system around their business so that they can reach their personal goals, which included, obviously, many people say create wealth, but this particular couple was also very big givers as well. So they wanted to put this system in place not only for their own personal financial freedom, so that they can be in a position to give. So I was super excited to work with them. So I asked him, I said, so what are your personal goals? And I explained to him, don't tell me what your business goals are. Tell me what your personal goals are, because that way we can reverse engineer into what the business needs to generate in order for you to get to this personal goal, right? So we went through that process and kind of identified what their personal goals were. And like I said, they mentioned wealth and they mentioned being in a position to give. So I said, great. Your goal is to create wealth. Well, by a quick show of hands, if I could see everybody here listening to the podcast, who all wants to create wealth? Well, everybody's hand should go up. Well, then I ask them my go-to question whenever I'm giving this presentation, especially in workshops. Well, how do you define wealth? Well, they went through the exercise. Well, we define it by, all the bills being paid, or, being able to go out and do this, or being able to give. And I said, okay, great. Well, how do you measure it? How do you measure whether or not you don't have wealth? And then how do you measure it when you've crossed over to having wealth? And they stumbled on this one, which most people do. And what I shared with them was something I learned years ago, was that you measure wealth in time. So I explained to them, if wealth is measured in time, think about it this way. How long could you maintain your current quality of life? I'm not just talking about paying the bills. I'm talking about your current lifestyle, whether that's going to the movies, going out to eat, vacation, traveling, whatever the case may be. How long would you be able to maintain your current quality of life if you stopped receiving income from your business today? That got them thinking, like, ooh, well, they said, well, Perry, I think we're good for maybe 12 or 18 months. And we started diving a little bit more into it because I said, well, first of all, kudos to you for having 12 to 18 months, because most Americans are probably only good until that next deposit, direct deposit hit, which we're finding out with this COVID-19 scenario when individuals are being cut off from their income. Like, hey, we can't pay the bills for next month. So I said, kudos to you guys. Pat yourself on the back for that you have 12 to 18 months. But we need to get crystal clear. Is it really 12 or is it 18 months? Is it someplace in between, or is it someplace, further? Is it sometimes shorter? But we started the process of thinking about what that looks like. So the first step, one, is define your wealth. Well, my apologies. Step one is get crystal clear that your business is a vehicle to transport you to your personal goals. Step two, define wealth. And how do you measure it? We want to measure it in time. So I asked my clients, I said, so do you want just 18 months of wealth, or do you want 20, 30 years of wealth? What does that look like? And again, if we define it in time, if you stop doing what you're doing today, how long would you be to maintain your quality of life? They're like, who, right? So now that we've done that, we know we need to go to step three. And step three is, what is your current monthly budget? So y'all either grab a pen and paper out here, or if you're like me and your handwriting is absolutely horrible and you can't make it out after you write something down, grab your Excel spreadsheet. And this is something you definitely need to do today, not tomorrow, not next week when I have time. This is what you need to do today if you have not done this already. What you want to do is get crystal clear on what your monthly budget is. And so, my clients were like, well, our monthly budget? And I said, not your business budget, your monthly personal budget. Because again, we're keeping the end goal in mind. So what's your personal monthly budget? So they're like, well, man, Perry, well, I think it's 1,500. And then the wife was like, no, well, I think it's higher than that. I think it's closer to 2,500. And it's like, oh, we don't know what the monthly budget is. And again, no fault, saying to we're not pointing the finger at them, because if I were to ask you that question right now, could you tell me within $100 to $200 how much your monthly personal budget is? Most people cannot. And this is where we begin to just fall really, really short. And this is where we got to get laser focused on this. Because if we understand that number, then we can reverse engineer and build systems around that. So we know what so we went through exercise. So you didn't have that number at the time. I said, no problem. Let's just, for illustration purposes, say that it's $3,000 a month. So I sent over to them our budget worksheet so they can complete that. And we used to keep the exercise going. We said, okay, $3,000 is our number. Great. Then I asked them, I said, so now that we know what our budget number is, do we have 3, 6 months, 9 months, 12? How many months of our monthly lifestyle expenses do we have set aside, right? So now that we kind of have a number, we look back at that. Well, are we in the right ballpark? Okay, great. I said, okay. So I said, what are you comfortable having? Are you comfortable having 3 months, 6 months, 9, 12? And they said, well, Perry, we usually like to have 6, but just because of what's going on with the whole COVID-19, we like to probably feel really, really comfortable having 12. Great. So now that we know that we need 12 months, and we're using this example of $3,000 per month, then this particular client needed to have $36,000 in cash, because that money can be set aside. This is set aside and can be used to pay them $3,000 a month to keep the bills and pay everything and keep everything afloat. Now, I'm not saying everybody needs to have 12 months, but what I am saying that this COVID-19 crisis make you realize that you should have more than 1 month or more than a couple $100. It probably lets you realize, like, man, I would have loved to have 3 months, 2 months, in some people's cases, even 1 month set aside. So whatever is comfortable for you, but ideally we like to see 3 months to 6. If you feel more comfortable with 9 or 12, by all means. But now we have a number, okay? So in this case, we said 12 months. We're at $3,000 a month. That means they need to have $36,000 set aside, which at this particular couple does. Now we look at it like this. What do we have above that 36,000? Those are now dollars that need to be employed. If you've heard me say this before, let no dollar go unemployed. So if we have enough to cover the emergency fund for, in this particular case, for this client, for a year, anything above and beyond that is money that needs to go to work. So now in step 5, now that we have identified what we have available, now we can talking about, any money above that number could be considered, investable, something we can put to work. We shouldn't even be having a conversation about investing dollars if we don't at least have the fundamentals covered. So in this case, we sent them through another exercise, right? And I said, okay, now that we know what we have available to invest right now, right, based upon us knowing our numbers, let's talk about what asset we want to acquire to help us reach that retirement goal. Because again, if the retirement goal or the goal, I should say, of meeting wealth, acquiring wealth, is having 20 to 30 years of, hey, if I don't generate another dime from my career or my job or my business, that we have 20 to 30 years of wealth, right, available. So we start talking about different assets. So is that asset going to be real estate? Is it going to be building your business to a certain point that you can sell it off and then be able to live off of the proceeds of that sale of that business? Is it going to be traditional retirement planning? Is it going to be a combination of both? So we got to thinking. So for the sake of this conversation here, let me just show you the exercise we sent them through if it was going to be, your traditional retirement plan. So this is the way it looked. We said, okay, we know that we need $3,000 a month, hypothetically. And let's say hypothetically, back into the numbers here, we're not including inflation because this is a whole nother conversation. We don't have enough time for that on this call. But let's say at $3,000 a month means that you need $36,000 a year. They said, okay, Perry, that makes sense. All right. My next exercise was pull out your calculator, take 36,000 and divide 36,000 by 3.5%. And the number we got was almost $1.1 million. And they said, okay. I said, well, if your goal was to have a nest egg in a traditional retirement vehicle that could pay you the $36,000 a year that you needed to live off of to quote unquote create wealth, then you would need to have a nest egg of a little over $1 million. This came up to being $1,028,571.43. Now I said, now we're not factoring inflation in here. This is just a very quick way for us to determine whether or not we're even a ballpark or even close to having enough saved, if that's going to be our wealth creating vehicle, if you will. And they said, okay, Perry, we never even had no idea what that number looked like. Great. Then the next step we did was, again, reverse engineered into how much do you have today? How much would you have to put in per month? At what interest rate return to get this nest egg in, 20 years? And they said, Perry, we've never looked at it that way. Most people have not. When you do that, then you may be thinking to yourself, well, Perry, I'm putting money into my 401k. I'm maxing that out, how much I can put in. But is that enough? Because I hear this so many times. Oh, Perry, well, I'm saving. Well, that's great that you're saving. I don't want to discourage you from saving. Saving is a phenomenal skill set and a phenomenal habit. But are you saving enough? How horrible would it be to be like, oh, yes, I'm saving. Hey, Perry, I'm saving, $100 a paycheck. Okay, that's great. $100 a paycheck over the course of, a year might give you a couple grand, but is that how much you need to be saving in order for you to reach your goal? So lessons from this particular segment of Profitology is you always have to start with the end in mind and chop that down and reverse engineer into what you need to be doing today in order to reach that goal. When you do that, you make this process so much easier because you know the numbers. It's always in the data. So real quickly here, let me go through these steps one more time here for you as your takeaways. Identify your personal financial goals. If you're by yourself, if you're with your spouse, if you're with your partner, sit down and do this together. Because what we found out when we went through this exercise with this couple is that they had different personal financial goals. Though they were one unit and a very strong couple, how they looked at wealth and their personal financial goals actually differed. So how about we have a conversation about that so we know exactly those differences so that we can build a plan that accommodates both of the personal financial goals. So step one. Step two, define wealth. How do you measure it? And then how much wealth do you want to have accumulated, right? So do you want to have 10 years worth of wealth? Do you want to have 20 years, 20 years worth of wealth, 30 years worth of wealth? And when do you want to hit that point? You got to be crystal clear on that and put it on paper. You may have heard me say this before. If it doesn't make sense on paper, that shit will not make sense in real life. 3, create your monthly budget. You know what I'm saying? Well, not even create your monthly budget. Know what your current monthly budget is. And your monthly budget isn't just, oh, well, my mortgage is $1,500. Well, what about your utilities? What about your food? What about your clothes? What about your internet? What about going out to eat? What about traveling? What about vacations? Like that's your lifestyle goal. So you kind of have like your bare minimum goal, but who wants just bare minimum? Let's be realistic. You know what I'm saying? When you hit that, if your goal is to accumulate wealth, define it, right? So get crystal clear on what your lifestyle budget is. 4, make sure before you even think about investing that you have enough set aside to cover you for a couple months. And that's different for everybody. Like I said, we recommend 3 to 6, from entrepreneurs, 12. And this, what we learned from this crisis, maybe you needed to have, 12 or 18 months so you can feel comfortable, right? But regardless, you have to have emergency funds set aside. This doesn't work until you do this. 5, all right, now that we know how much we need to have set aside for the, cover the emergency expense or the monthly budget or setting aside, a couple months of quote unquote wealth, then anything above that are dollars that need to be invested into some vehicle, right? Let no dollar go unemployed. And again, that vehicle doesn't necessarily have to be stocks and bonds or retirement plans. That could be investing in your personal growth and development with respects to, your business. Maybe that's hiring a coach, but those dollars have to be put to work so that you're getting some type of ROI on them. 6, what assets do you want to acquire with that? So again, identifying now, like, hey, this is what I have available. Let me put this to work to get a ROI on it. So that could be, purchasing real estate, again, retirement plans, stocks, your Forex traders. I mean, whatever the case may be, you've identified those dollars. Now you can feel comfortable, moving forward with that. And then backing into those numbers and understanding, okay, how much of income, what type of asset do I have to have that's going to kick off the type of income that I need to be able to, quote unquote, cross over from wealth, having no wealth to having wealth. All right, y'all. So there you go. Perry Jeffries here. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Profitology. I hope it was valuable to you. As always, you can go to perryjeffries.com, get access to our free resources at perryjeffries.com/resources. You can also schedule a strategy call with us if you'd like to discuss how we could potentially work together. And also, too, don't forget to join our Facebook group, our Entrepreneur Wealth Building Facebook group. We'd like to get that up to a couple thousand here over the next couple months, just so we have a platform where entrepreneurs and like-minded individuals can share ideas and strategies and continue to build and support each other. So again, thank you for joining me. Stay profitable. All right, peace.